Activate the neural reset. Train without music. She pulled the earbuds from her ears mid-rep, breathing hard, feeling suddenly naked in the silence. For years, music had been her armor, the beat that drowned out doubt, fatigue, the voice that whispered she wasn't enough. But something about this moment felt different, raw, real. Like most of us, she'd built her entire training routine around that familiar rhythm. The playlist was curated. The tempo matched her pace. Without it, she thought she'd collapse under the weight of her own thoughts. She was wrong. What she discovered in that silence wasn't emptiness. It was presence, the kind that forces you to actually feel your body instead of just moving through it. And once she felt it, everything started to shift. Let me take you through what happened next, because it's not what you'd expect. For months she'd been chasing progress the way everyone does. Harder workouts, longer sessions, more intensity. But her body wasn't responding. If anything, she felt more disconnected than ever, like she was performing fitness instead of living it. Then came the day she forgot her headphones. At first it felt like failure. She almost turned around and went home, but she stayed. And in the quiet hum of the gym, something strange began to happen. She could hear her breathing, not just the sound, but the rhythm, the depth, the struggle. She could feel her feet pressing into the floor, the tension building in her legs, the exact moment her form started to break. Without the music, there was nowhere to hide. Researchers at MIT found something fascinating about this. When we remove auditory distraction during physical training, the brain reallocates processing power to proprioception, our internal sense of body position and movement. In other words, we become more aware of what we're actually doing. But here's what surprised her most. It wasn't just physical awareness that improved. In the silence, her mind started wandering, but not in a scattered way. She thought about why she was there, what she was really training for, whether she was pushing herself out of love or fear. These weren't comfortable thoughts. Part of her wanted to plug back in to drown it all out again, but she stayed with it. And somewhere in that discomfort, she found clarity. She realized she'd been using music the same way some people use caffeine or motivation videos, as a buffer between herself and the hard truth of showing up. Not because music is bad, but because she'd stopped asking herself what she actually needed. What would you do in that moment? The next week she tried it again. No music, just breath, movement, and the quiet hum of effort. This time she noticed something else. Her pace changed, not slower, but more intentional. She wasn't racing the beat anymore. She was listening to her body's own tempo, and her body responded. Her form improved, her recovery felt cleaner. She stopped grinding through pain and started recognizing fatigue before it became injury. It was like learning a new language, one she'd been speaking her whole life but never actually heard. But then came the setback. 3 weeks in, she hit a wall. A workout that should have felt easy left her gasping, frustrated, doubting everything. Maybe the silence wasn't working. Maybe she needed that external push after all. She almost gave up. Sometimes we only understand strength when it's tested. Instead of quitting, she did something radical. She sat down on the gym floor, closed her eyes, and just listened. To her heart rate slowing, to the ambient noise around her, to the quiet truth that progress doesn't always look like progress. She laughed, realizing she'd been measuring success the wrong way. She'd expected linear growth, constant improvement, dramatic transformation. But real change is messier than that. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back, and 100 micro-adjustments in between. That's when it clicked. Training without music wasn't about deprivation. It was about recalibration, resetting the neural pathways that had learned to depend on external stimulation for motivation, teaching her brain that she could find drive, focus, and strength from within. Neuroscientists call this interoceptive training, the practice of tuning into internal signals rather than external cues. And the research is compelling. Studies show that athletes who regularly train without music develop better pacing strategies, improved pain tolerance, and stronger mind-body connection. But what surprised me most wasn't just how this shift improved her training experience. It was how everything started to feel different once she embraced the quiet. Her sleep improved. Her stress response softened. She found herself more present in other areas of life, not just the gym. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a genuine recalibration. I wasn't expecting such a clear change, and honestly, I tested it more than a few times before I figured out what really worked for me. What helped was tracking my heart rate variability and recovery metrics more closely. It gave me objective feedback on what my body was telling me in the silence. This isn't a promotion, just sharing real results that made a noticeable difference. Understanding your body's actual recovery state, not just how you feel emotionally, changed everything about how I approached training without music. I'll leave some resources below if you want to explore what I mean. But here's the deeper truth she discovered. We've become so addicted to stimulation that we've forgotten how to be with ourselves. We scroll, we stream, we soundtrack every moment. Not because it enhances the experience, but because we're terrified of what we might hear in the silence. Our own thoughts, our own doubts, our own truth. And that's exactly why training without music can be so transformative. It's not just about fitness. It's about learning to be present with discomfort, to find rhythm in your own breath, to trust that you don't need external validation to know you're enough. She kept going. Some days were harder than others. Some workouts felt transcendent. Others felt like grinding through mud. But she stayed committed to the practice. And then something unexpected happened. She started hearing music differently. When she did choose to train with it, she wasn't using it as armor anymore. She was using it as amplification, a conscious choice to enhance an already solid foundation, not a crutch to hide behind. The difference was everything. Researchers at Stanford found something similar. When routine meets meaning, consistency finally sticks. We stop relying on willpower and start moving from a place of deeper purpose, and that's when transformation becomes sustainable. But let me be clear. This isn't about right or wrong. Music isn't the enemy. Silence isn't the answer. The point is awareness, intentionality, asking yourself why you do what you do and whether it's serving you or just numbing you. She thought she was training her body, but in the silence she was training her mind, her resilience, her capacity to show up even when no one was watching, no playlist was pumping, no external force was pushing her forward. Somewhere between the failures and the quiet mornings, she found rhythm and peace. Not the kind of peace that comes from getting everything right, but the kind that comes from finally being honest about what you need. From stopping the performance and starting the practice. And here's what she learned. Your body is always speaking to you. But if you're always drowning it out with noise, you'll never hear what it's trying to say. Maybe it's telling you to slow down. Maybe it's telling you to push harder. Maybe it's telling you that rest is just as sacred as effort. But you'll only know if you listen. What would happen if you tried it? Just once, one workout, no headphones, no distractions. Just you, your breath, and the movement. I'm not saying it'll be comfortable, it probably won't be. But discomfort is often where growth lives. And if you've been running from that silence for as long as she had, maybe it's time to stop running. Because the truth is, the music was never what made her strong. It just made her feel strong. And once she learned the difference, everything changed. When she looked in the mirror again, it wasn't her reflection that had changed. It was what she believed about herself. She wasn't broken. She wasn't behind. She wasn't failing because she struggled. She was human. And humans don't need a soundtrack to be extraordinary. They just need to show up, listen, and trust the process. That's the neural reset, not a hack, not a shortcut, just presence, just honesty, just the courage to train without the armor and see what's really there. And I'll tell you this, what's there is often more powerful than anything you've been trying to drown out. So here's my question for you. What are you avoiding by never training in silence? What truth might be waiting for you in that space between breaths? You don't have to answer now, but maybe, just maybe, it's worth finding out. This isn't medical advice, just one person's experience with recalibration, presence, and the power of listening to what your body has been trying to tell you all along. Always consult with healthcare professionals before making significant changes to your training routine, especially if you have underlying health conditions. But if you're ready to explore what silence might teach you, start small. One set, one workout, one honest conversation with yourself. You might be surprised by what you hear. Tell us what part of this story resonated most and where you're watching from. See you in the next video. Bye.